All right, guys, welcome to Summit Stories. Jonathan Seep here. As always, I'm joined with two of the best looking men I've ever seen, Sean Lee and Scott Dougan. Say hi, guys.
How's it
Hi guys.
going?
In addition to being insanely good looking, these guys are also really good advisors. And I think we've got some cool and fun stuff to talk about today. Before we get too far into business, I'd love for everyone just to get to know you guys a little bit. Scott, why don't you share a little bit about what it is that you do when you're not being an advisor and the kind of things that bring joy to your life outside of work?
It's a short list of things. No, just kidding. Uh, no, I mean, I always view the business as kind of a means to an end. It supplies us cash flow to do what we want to do. And so my wife and I, in usual times, we really love to travel. Uh, it's one of our big hobbies. We love to cook. I actually almost became a chef prior to becoming a financial advisor. And so that's the case. And we're right in the middle of a big home renovation. And so we're doing a lot of that. Kind of did that in my previous life, getting through school. And so thoroughly enjoying that creative aspect of getting out there, putting it together, making it happen, and seeing the end result.
It looks good, man. I would paint just a little bit under that light over there, but otherwise it's looking pretty good.
It's getting closer every day.
Very cool. Where's a cool place that you've been traveling recently?
Recently, well, I say the coolest trip we've been on, like that was planned, didn't get canceled. I would say Croatia was hands down one of the coolest places that we've been. We spent about a week there in 2019. But that's the latest big trip we've been on to, and hopefully we can start to get back to some of those epic trips soon, hopefully maybe later this year.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Sean, I want to hear what you do. What's fun for Sean and family?
Unlike Scott, I've got kids. I've got a couple of kids that are super active, and my daughter's she'll be 12 in 2 months, so she's a middle school cheerleader, and tumbling and gymnastics and dance and all that stuff keeps her pretty busy. I've been fortunate enough to be blessed with a son who loves baseball as much as I do, and a lot of our time right now is he's 8. He's playing in a couple of accelerated baseball leagues, and we're coaching him, and then my wife and I are into golf, and I still get out on the diamond and play as much as I can. It's not as frequent as it used to be, but I still get out to Fort Myers once a year and play in the Red Sox fantasy camp that I've done for the last couple of years. So all sports all the time in our family, and just running wild with the kids. I feel more like a taxi driver than anything in a lot of cases, but it's all good.
Uber, you can just work at your own convenience. I'll send you a link. You can sign up.
There you go.
No, and Sean, you left something out that I expected you to talk about, and I'll probably try to embarrass you with the photo on here, but tell us about your pet eagle that lives in the swimming pool.
Oh yeah, so a couple of years ago, it was for my son, our birthday. You probably have the picture. It was on social media or something, I don't know.
Or maybe I sent it to him.
Oh, you did? So my son and I share a birthday, right? And a buddy of mine one year got us this inflatable like pool bald eagle, and we could never use it last year because of COVID hit. It was a community pool at our place in southern Utah. And this year the pool finally just opened up. This was probably like 3 weeks ago. And so we inflated the thing. I had no idea how big this blow up eagle was. It's like 8 feet long. And we had to get a battery powered generator to inflate it, because you couldn't do it by hand and mouth. It was just too big. And so after Easter, we took our kids up to the pool. We stayed for a week because they were on spring break, and there was nobody at the pool. So I thought, I'm going to bring up this bald eagle. And so we threw it, we brought it up, we threw it on the golf cart, drove the damn thing up with us, holding on to it. It's on the ceiling. I've got one side, my daughter has the other. And we tossed it in the pool, and it took up just about the entire like corner of the pool. So yeah, we got the bald eagle. It's all America all the time down down there for us.
That's awesome. That was some high quality social content, and I enjoyed that. Cool. Well,
I was waiting for you to throw the picture up, but that's okay.
We'll put it'll be up here when this is done, you'll see it in all its glory.
Perfect.
Cool. So one of the things that makes, I think, your guys' practice a little bit different, aside from all of this, is just
beards.
The beards. Absolutely. That's a requirement. I'm sure that's in the charter.
It is.
You guys are partners, but you're also your own business owner and you live in different areas. I'd love to hear a little bit about kind of how the story of how that all came to be and just kind of what that's been like working as a partnership with somebody that you obviously don't get along with. But no, I think that partnerships are a tough thing in business a lot of times. And I think there's probably a lot of people who benefit just from learning about how that went and kind of how you set it up and all that sort of thing.
Sure. You want to chat, Sean? You want me to start?
Sure. If you start at the beginning, like Scott and I both came from partnerships in the past, and
bad ones.
Yeah, and we were both a little gun shy, and I don't remember. This must have been 8 or 9 years ago at this point. Scott and I were at an event, and happened to just sit next to each other and start chatting, telling each other our stories about where we came from, where our practices were headed. And at the time, we were both like in really similar positions. We had just left bad partnerships. We were going out on our own to build the practices that we envisioned, the practices that we wanted. And we had a lot of the same philosophies. And so initially it started as, hey, let's have a once a week discussion around what's working in your practice, what's working in mine, and let's build practices that are really similar to each other so we can help each other kind of build. As time went on, we started talking more frequently, almost on a daily basis about, hey, what about this idea? How should we market? Different ideas. How are you structuring your events? And then we started to do a lot of the same marketing. And we came across this, college educational courses. We started doing that together. And our first foray into a partnership was Retirement Elevated, the college educational classes that we created. We wrote those and designed them and started marketing those. And that was really the first initial partnership that we had, because we still had our different practices as we went. They were branded separately. We were under the same RIA at the time, but we were just buddies trying to help each other out. And as time went on, we made the strategic decision to create our own RIA, which we own together. And after we did that, we realized really quickly that, all right, it doesn't make sense for us to have two differently branded planning firms. We've got the RIA, we've got the marketing company, which is the Retirement Elevated stuff, but our planning firms were branded separately. So what we decided to do was to go in and brand them the same under Elevated Retirement Group, but almost run as separate franchises and franchisee owners of the mothership is really how we did that. But it was a progression, man. It wasn't just like this, like 2012, like, hey, let's just go into all this as a one massive partnership. We really just dipped our toe into it and slowly went along the process. And as the businesses progressed, and when it made sense to consolidate and combine and become more strategic partners and more business partners, we did that. I think that it helps because I think we see things differently. I see things more structurally, and Scott sees things more from a marketing perspective. So that helps us being partners, but also I think being in different cities also helps, because we can both be, a little tough at times. And when one of us is being tough, the other one can be like, I'll talk to you later, dude, and just hang up. So, but the thing about it is I think that it's also really helped and forced Scott to learn how to communicate as business partners and how to talk to each other, because it's not like I can walk down the hall
Mm.
and just chat and just be like, hey, what about this? We've really learned how to communicate, especially when we're making big decisions when it comes to our business. So Scott, I don't know if there's anything else that you want to add to that, but
No, I think that's a great explanation. And I think that, it has naturally evolved. And even the, retirement elevated thing, we started that because the company we're using told us we could only use it a couple times a year. And we're like, whoa, this thing's working really well. What do you mean I can only do this a couple times a year? So really, we were just mad that they wouldn't let us do what we wanted to do. That's like the wrong thing to tell either of us, that you can't do something. And so
It actually is one of the greatest motivators for any new venture.
Oh, it is. It is.
Definitely.
But it was great for us. So we created out of necessity for us. We had no idea or vision that was going to be something other than stuff that we were going to use to build our practice.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll echo what Sean said. As a business relationship grows, and it's about aligning strengths. And Sean said it perfectly. He's very structured. He can see those things, and he's very organized. I'm more, marketing focused, persuasion focused. And so it's a good combination. And it's like any relationship, it's got its ebbs and flows. And he's right. We're probably better off not being in the same location most of the time.
Mm-hmm. At least you're both places with beautiful mountains.
mine are real. His hands are disappearing. It's like his hands are getting cut off.
I felt out of place. One of these kids is not like the other. You guys got mountains in the background. I'm like, got to do something.
So, you both touched on something there, which I think is worth diving into a little bit. And that's that you each have strengths in the business. And what I hear is marketing and vision and then structure and implementation. Can you pull that apart a little bit more, Scott, and just tell me, like, what is it about the business that you feel you're best at and you can really contribute to, not just to your practice, but also to the partnership that you've got?
Sure. Like, one of the things that has come naturally to me is being able to connect things and to be able to see, well, this works over here in somebody's practice. Where can we implement it into ours? Or this thing works in some other business outside of our financial planning. How could we implement that here? And so that's part of it. And then just that marketing, I've always been fascinated with the concept of, I'm going to craft a message, I'm going to send it to somebody, and they're going to do what I want them to do, or at least get the ball rolling. That never ceases to amaze me, but that's possible.
Mm-hmm.
And so always trying to figure out, how is it that we attract people that are good fits for our business, and try to just clear the way of all barriers for them to become a client.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's the way I see marketing. And more as we evolve, we're not so focused on a massive flow of leads. Okay, leads aren't prospects. Leads are just information. We're more focused on, how do we get the right type of people in front of us to listen to our message, and how do they easily transition to become a client. I think that's where our focus is and where we've evolved to. Those days of, I know Sean's done it, I've done it, running those 20, 30 appointments a week, are just not in the wheelhouse of anything that sounds good to do anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so honing your marketing to be more strategic is important.
Yeah. Well, let's break that down a little bit. I think, I've heard it said before that if you're a really good marketer, you don't have to be a great salesperson. And I think that's true in a couple different ways. I think you could say, hey, I'm a better marketer, I have more people to see, so I can have a lower close rate and still have more business. You could also take the approach you're saying, which is like, hey, if I really, really dial in my marketing to attract the ideal consumer, then like everything is just going to be happening at a higher rate. We're going to have higher assets, higher appointments rates, higher close rates. And what I hear you say, and obviously we've talked about this before, Scott, is just like dialing in exactly who that right person is really a big part of making the business work for you. And something we haven't talked a whole lot about, I know by the time this is out there, we'll talk more about kind of how the Steep partnership works with Retirement Elevate and helping market the classes. But aside from the marketing aspect of that, I'd love to hear just a little bit about that class and does that play a role in accomplishing this objective you're talking about, which is like really dialing in that ideal client?
And I think, Drew, and we'll back up to your point. I believe you owe it to people to be a good marketer, and you better be a good sales / persuasive person, because attracting them and not being able to give them information and encourage them to do things that are in their best interest. First of all, it's got to be in their best interest. You're doing those people a disservice. So just because you have a ton of leads doesn't mean you can be crappy at the sales process.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one thing Sean and I have both tried to become masters at, is that attracting people and acquiring at the same time. And now we're more focused on the retention as well as the 3 parts of that business. But to your point about, the attracting the right type of people, and Sean will echo this. I remember the time where he and I would be super excited. We'd be at an event somewhere. I can remember we were in Arizona. This is early on. And he's like, man, I can't wait. I dropped a concierge mailer and by the time I get back, people are going to be calling in. They're going to be scheduled. And all I had to do was bribe them with $100 gift card. But like we were stoked about that, like giving stuff away to entice people. But I think once we found that we like to educate people in a very non-threatening format, we like to give them a wealth of information, and we like people that are looking for that. Now, the ironic part is people think, well, if you're teaching this long format class, you're getting a bunch of DIYers. They're just trying to learn everything so do it for themselves. That's not the case. Sure, we get a few DIYers in there, but I think what happens is they just want to know enough about the process. They really want is someone that they can trust to engage with, to delegate to. I think that's been our aha moment, is this is our core. This is what we teach. We teach holistic financial planning. And we want people that are attracted to that. We don't want to lead with one thing or the other, some whiz bang product. That's not our clientele. So, and I think, and I can tell you, mistakes that we've made over time is veering away from our core messaging, our core values, and trying to do something else. Perfect example, beginning of COVID, what everybody say, oh, you can't do anything long format. You got to keep this 15, 20 minutes. You got to scare people. And I'll speak for myself. And I kind of took that bait. We were doing short format webinars. And I think, I don't know when it was, but Sean and I was like, listen, we're just going to get back to doing what we've always done. We're just going to do it digitally, but we're going to teach the same stuff. We're going to attract the right people, and we're not going to try to be somebody that we're not. So I think that sticking to our core and teaching the 5 areas of planning has been key. And anytime that we've veered off course, it's not been a good situation.
Mm-hmm. Sean, you look like you're itching to say something.
Yeah, he's got something to say.
No. I mean, it is. I mean, if you look at the how we've constructed our practices, we're not high velocity guys. As far as, Scott talked about the days of doing 20, 30 appointments in a week. Like, that makes me sick at this point. I personally don't want to do it. I don't want our advisors to do that, because the quality of planning that I believe that our clients deserve, we don't have time to do that. If all of your time is in meetings, you don't have time to do full holistic planning. And that's not a knock on anybody who's doing that. That's just our business model is more methodical marketing, more education, and higher asset size per event. Our average case sizes aren't the 100 to 150 that a lot of advisors are seeing. I know in Utah, our average case size is between 750 and $1 million. And Scott, for you, it's over $1 million in Johnson County. So our whole focus has always been around, let's look for individuals and clients that we can make a dramatic impact in. And to be honest, the way that our marketing is constructed and our classes are, I mean, you're looking at a 5-hour class. The average person with $100,000 is not going to sit through 5 hours of education. They're going to go to a dinner seminar, or they're going to get information from the radio. But by having that barrier to entry of 5 hours, we inherent just by nature get highly qualified and highly motivated individuals. Otherwise, they wouldn't spend 5 hours with us. Right?
They're not lacking in the social realm. They're not looking for something to do. They're looking for answers to the questions that are keeping them up at night.
Yeah.
So that's the focus.
One of the marketing lessons that I learned that early on, thankfully, is that, and this is something I learned at a Frank Kern class, if you ever heard of Frank Kern. He, among his other unique ideas, he's got this thing he calls magnetism and repulsion. And the whole idea is that when you look at a magnet, you've got your plus sign, you've got your minus sign. And as marketers all the time, we're thinking about the plus sign. Like, how do we get people to come towards us? But the other side of that magnet is just as important, which is like trying to get the wrong people away from you. And I hear this from time to time with advisors, like, hey, I had some people go through my class that weren't great prospects, and I wasted a bunch of time and appointments with them. In my opinion, like, that means that your event probably wasn't executed the way that it should have been. Like, they should have figured out in that time, whether it was an hour or 5 hours with you, that like the kind of person that I'm going to work really well with looks like this. And if that's not you, then that's not a great fit. But I think that that's even like, you're taking that even a step further, like in the advertising and the structure of the class, including the content. Like, you're as focused on that like negative side of the magnet as you are on the positive side of it, which I think is probably just bringing you the exact people that you want to be working with. I'd like to talk a little bit about Corona, or as I like to call it, the cocoa. I don't know if that's like, are we going to get flagged on Google when we upload this to YouTube or not? But
we're just got full demonetized.
Yeah. Okay. That's not happening now. If this video is still up, I want to talk a little bit about how everything has changed. And obviously a lot has changed. I think I remember being literally petrified about a year ago when someone was like sitting right here and they're like, hey, Jonathan, like, we have a guy whose seminar is tomorrow, and his venue just called him right now and said they're not going to do it because of this thing called coronavirus. And that was the first of 150 situations in the next 14 days that would unfold like that. And it's just like, hit the panic button. Let's rebuild our entire business. And obviously I know how that impacted us, but at the advisory level, I think that oftentimes like good things can happen from bad things. I heard Ryan Dice speak at an event the other day, and he was saying how he gave example after example after example, people who had like this core service offering that was interrupted from Corona, and they had to pivot and create something new. And that's essentially what we did, seminars going into webinars. But now kind of emerging, hopefully on the other side of this thing, now we've kind of got two different stacks of products that we can offer. So in the end, it'll be a good thing for us. But I'd love to hear a little bit about like what changed in the advisor space for you. How did you adapt to that? You know, did you have any like silver lining moments that came out of this you think that'll help you in the future?
Sure. Well, I think that, Sean and I come from a unique position where we are advisors, but we also have a marketing company. So we've had the same thing where our classes are taught at universities and colleges, and those started to shut down. So we had a ton of classes and campaigns that just shut down just like you did. And so going into that, Corona situation, I'll speak for our situation. It was probably one of the best things that's happened to us from a business perspective. We were able to slow down and do a lot of the things like we should have been doing, but couldn't slow down enough to do it. An example, I had been going to life insurance events for probably 2 years and done a whopping like $50,000, $100,000 in target life. Well, I said, well, you know what? We're kind of shut down. We're not seeing a lot of new people. I just need to kind of walk through this. Let's just start calling our clients and let's bring them in and talk about, or do Zooms and talk about life insurance. We did 573,000 in target life last year.
Whew.
Over Zoom calls. I'm not one person in, so it's crazy. So we had a record production year. We had a record profit year, and it let us get rid of a lot of things that just weren't effective and were just overkill. And I think probably the biggest thing from an efficiency standpoint, I know Sean and I have been talking about like, hey, how do we shift these reviews to make them more efficient? How do we get them to do Zooms, do webinars? Well, we were forced to do it. And I can tell you, I've done maybe 10 in-person meetings since last year.
Man.
2 of those being today, but I'd only done 8 prior to that. And so I think it's been great for us. We're just more fine-tuned. And now we're ready, just like you, to pivot. We've done all virtual online classes live. We're starting to do some live venues, but we're going to continue to have both and run those simultaneously, as marketing options.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's crazy to me to think about having a production year that's a record, implementing a new product, and then having 10 total appointments in a 12-month period. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing is like business is getting more lightweight and faster and a little bit more virtual. Sean, I know you've probably had similar pivots in your business. Any other like silver linings come out for you as a result of the Coco?
Well, I learned that, and just like Scott said, we own a marketing company. Don't listen to marketing companies, because this stuff hit. Nobody knew what to do. Do webinars. Okay, what does that mean? Do it this long. Well, okay, what's the data behind it? Well, we don't know. We just think to do it. And we went through that for probably 4 months. Finally, we just said, you know what, we're just going to go against the norm. And we went to you guys and we said, we want to do a live virtual, and we want to teach our retirement elevated 5-hour class via Zoom. And we did it. I mean, you guys, we filled the rooms, virtual rooms. We had people turning on their cameras, and yes, the ratios were lower because you're not in person, but that's all we've been doing now. We had to pivot from being in person in a venue to transitioning a conference room to a live classroom.
Well, let's talk about that in a little more detail, Sean, because I think this is a really cool thing that most people aren't doing or don't even know how to do. And I can literally take zero credit for doing this, because this was all, I remember having that call and I was like, this is probably not a great idea. I was like, yeah, sure, I'll take your money. Let's do it. But let's talk a little bit, like, what does that actually mean? You're doing it on Zoom, you have cameras on, like, how does that process even work? I mean, I know what happens when someone clicks a button and signs up, but then what is your office doing to make that event happen?
So it was more time. It's more time intensive. I mean, you have somebody come into a live event with Retirement Elevated. We're sending them maps and directions, and we're confirming, and we're doing all of those things. We're still doing all of that. But for our 5-hour class, when people meet us in person, they get a big binder that's a 168-page book. They're getting some of these things. So we had to figure out how to do that. And so we decided we're just going to treat it like a live class. Anybody who's confirmed via mail, they're getting the first half of the book and the binder. We mail it out. It costs $8. In between classes, we had to do some things because we had some fall offs. So we created an email video for me that was just talking about, hey, you attended the first night, second night, expect this. And in the second night, we talk about tax planning. And this is the most important area of planning, in our opinion, or one of the most. And then, so make sure you're there, but also the second half of your book is coming. And we'd mail it out the second night. And then day of the class, we ended up buying some really high-tech Logitech cameras. They telescope, they zoom in, they zoom out, and a TV cart with a flat screen on it. And we set it up as a Zoom. So we've got this big TV cart in front of us, high-tech camera, and the presenter is in front of a whiteboard that goes across the wall. And presenter teaches the class to the Zoom attendees, much like they would be in their college setting. We ask everybody to turn their cameras on, but mute, because there's dogs barking, grandkids screaming, watching the TV. Who knows what people are doing at home? They're in the comfort of their home, right? So there are distractions there, but we're pretty frank. Hey, we want this to be interactive. We want to be able to see you, much like we could in a class. We want you to have the same materials that you would get if you attended live. Now, did it cost us more money? Sure. But the nominal expense to send out the books that are like $24, I think, Scott, out now, and then $16 to mail twice, $40 to get somebody on an event, and they've had hopefully the same experience that they would have had internally or in person. Now, the hard part has always been, well, how do we get people to fill out the survey? How do we get them to book and schedule? So there have been some growing pains on how you do that, sending calendar links and survey links in the chat, sending out an email right after the event, and then a phone call goes out right after the event. So there are extra steps that have to be made, but that's what, between that and then really loving on our current relationships and getting referrals, we're in the same boat as Scott. We slowed down our marketing last year. We didn't have to churn out a bunch of new business, to be quite honest. My mindset shifted a ton over the last 12 months. The things that are important to me at this point in my life aren't, do I get to bring on a new client or not? Because quite honestly, I don't care at this point. And that's not arrogance. It's our firm has grown to a point to where if I showed up tomorrow, it wouldn't be any different than if I showed up in 12 months. Our team would run, the firm would still have a high level of profitability. And now I'm free to go out and be, this week, my son has 9 baseball games between league play and tournaments. I'm going to be at every single one coaching him. And that means that I'm going to leave the office midway through the day, and so I think mindset has shifted quite a bit, and it's freedom is more important than, did I do another annuity or whatever? I just personally don't care at this point.
Yeah. Well, it's, I think sometimes we're like humble and we're trying to not brag about what it is we do, but I think what you guys have done is really cool. And I think there are advisors listening to this probably that'll benefit from that, but let's unpack this class a little bit. Like when you're doing this live virtual class through Zoom, and I'm putting you on the spot here. Hopefully we can get like some numbers, but I know, Sean, at one point you broke it down, like here's what our registrations look like and attendance and booked appointments. And I don't know if you even have as far as sales, but do you have any of that you'd want to share and just kind of show like, how is this actually looked and felt in your business?
You're calling me out. I got to pull the data. Scott, do you have any of that data readily available?
And so as you're pulling it up there, and I sent it over earlier, Jonathan, kind of our production numbers for the first quarter.
I filter your emails. It just straight to spam.
straight to spam folder. So, I mean, we just finished up the first quarter, just under 30 million in new assets, between the two offices. And that's not great for everybody, but that's pretty good for us. I mean, we feel pretty good about bringing on those types of assets, in this climate. And like Sean said, a lot of those are opening up and doing our classes and getting those going. And I think I want to touch on one thing before Sean gets into his numbers. The one thing we did take away from this pandemic is working through our book of clients and prospects and past responders. And so we really spent time figuring out how do we nurture those people. And I'll give you a perfect example. It happened. It was today. This is no BS. So one of our great clients came to a actual live class 4.5 years ago. They became clients. He just retired last year. It's about a $1.3 million family. So I've done a great job. So last week, the wife calls in and says, "Hey, my sister wants to bring my mom in to talk to you. Do you mind doing that?" I said, "Yeah, fine. Come on in." And he said, "Dad just passed away in January, so she's really kind of needs some help." So met with mom today and the sister. It's about $1.2 million. Thinks she's taking too much risk, wants to downplay it and be more conservative, but she wants tax planning. She understands she's not getting that. She goes, my daughter and her husband said you did a great job. And so we go through that. She was great. I think it looks good. So they're going to come on board. Well, at the end, the daughter said, "Hey, I came to your class with the client. She goes, I didn't meet with you because I went with another advisor about 6 weeks prior to going to your class. She goes, or I would have went to you. She goes, would you mind looking at my stuff? It's just, she had her folder. She slides it over. Said, yeah. She goes, I really like the people I'm with, but they just don't seem comprehensive in all these areas. I think taxes are going to be an issue. So I think I'm open to changing as well. So I'm thinking, okay, she's 53. Okay, we'll see what we have. Open it up, $3.9 million.
Yes.
So from one class that I did 4.5 years ago, I got a client then, the mother today, and the daughter or sister is also going to be a client.
Man.
But it's nothing, not because we're special. It's just they met us in a way that, and what we continue to do to add value, it's easy for them to talk about to other people.
Mm-hmm.
So I wish that happened every day. It does not, but
Yeah,
I'll take it
exactly.
when it does.
That's
Sorry,
awesome.
Sean, I'll let you kind of
No.
paraphrase on it. Just big generality numbers.
That's yeah. I mean, so I just pulled up the campaigns from this year, and a lot of this. So we've got a multitude of types of campaigns that we're running, right? And so we've got some of our campaigns are very low cost because we're nurturing our database, and we're no different. Like Scott was talking about, the family progression of people coming to him. I'm looking at one of our tax classes that we ran to our database where we had 12 households and 4 appointments come from that. One of them attended a full RE in-person class 2.5 years ago. As of the 27th of this month, they're moving 2.6 to one of our advisors, Chris. And that's just that cost us $0 to remarket to this individual because he was in our database. We were nurturing him, and he finally hit the point where he's like, all right, I'm 59 and a half now. Let's make some changes. And because we had continually provided education and content, we were able to just stay top of mind. Now, Scott, that 30 million is our 2 offices combined. You sent our numbers as well, right? So that's really where we're at. On average, we haven't done a ton in campaigns this year. I think we've done 3 total campaigns. On average, we've gotten anywhere from 28 to 50 people to register. About 50% of those people actually show, at least the first night or one of the nights. And then we've got about 50% of those people that show request an appointment. So numbers are a little bit lower virtually. I'm okay with that because they just go right into our continual marketing funnel. One thing that we've done that we've had actually started to see a lot of success on is taking our retirement elevated classes into local businesses as lunch and learns virtually. Melissa in our office spends a ton of time on business development. We just did a lunch and learn for a big medical supply company out here. We had 70 people register and 72 people show up. Now, why do we have 2 extra people show up? They just got emailed the link during the class and just popped in from one of their coworkers. And so I don't have the data on that quite yet as far as who's scheduled, but that cost us some time for one of our team members to go out and cultivate that relationship. Then the business itself marketed the entire class for us.
Mm-hmm.
And so
those like virtual numbers that you're saying though, that sounds to me exactly like what a normal seminar would look like. I mean, I think what we're seeing with webinars is oftentimes like a 30-40% show rate. And maybe on average, I mean, we do 150 of these a month, like probably something like a 20% appointment rate. So the fact that you're getting 50% show and 50% appointments, like that's pretty much like the old school, the seminar model.
Mm-hmm.
Those numbers sound pretty similar. So I think it just speaks to the value that people are finding, the content you guys provide. And I think that's kind of why the partnership between Steep and Retirement Elevate has been awesome, because you guys are a lot better at creating content and really truly doing planning work that advisors do than I ever want to be. And then we can come along and partner and help with the traffic side of that. So that's pretty cool. And I think it's just an encouragement to know that, life changes, the world shuts down, but like we can keep doing it. We've just got to be creative about it. I have one other question about marketing, and then we'll shift gears here again. But Scott, I know you're doing some creative stuff out in Kansas right now, and it involves popcorn. And I'd love for you to talk a little bit, not only about the creative event that you've got set up, but also just kind of what your outlook looks like with getting back into like seeing people in person again.
Sure. And so we, wish I could take credit for it, but it was from another advisor, a good friend of mine, Eric Peterson out of Des Moines, Iowa. He did a tax class at a movie theater. And not just the regular movie, it's the high-end, super nice chairs, tables, they've got a bar out in the lobby. And so we said, hey, the universities that we normally go into are not open, but I want to get it back out there because I think people want to get out and about. And so we found a chain of movie theaters that are super high-end, went to them and said, hey, are you guys open to do this? They're like, yes, please,
Please.
we want people coming in the door. And so basically $250 to rent the entire theater and $7.50 a person for snacks is what they charged us. And so we did a task class. So I think the thing I wanted people to take away is the material that we present is the same. Retirement Elevated's 5 hours, but it's 5 different areas. One of those being tax. We just took that tax module and teach it in a condensed version. So we're not learning new things. We're just compartmentalizing and putting in a new venue. But people were super excited to be out in public. And one guy was like, man, you don't know how much I wanted movie popcorn because this is awesome to do this. But we did those and I got 14 appointments, out of those in-person appointments. And 4 of those are over $1 million, investable assets. And so one thing I would go back to that virtual, I think the reason why our virtual show up and appointment ratio is so high, because traditionally when we're at a university, our appointment ratios are 75, 85%. And they're super high in a live. So I think it just translates over a little bit lower, but it's higher than the average for that. And so that being said, we really like that idea. We're going to continue to run virtual, and virtual live. But as our universities open up, I think we've got 2 slated for the end of this month. I think we've got 4 for next month that we'll teach the full blown to hopefully a room full of people is what we're looking at. So we're going to get back to doing that, but we're definitely not going to abandon the virtual side of it because we've invested in that. We've got the setup for it. And it's nice to go into my office, walk into our virtual classroom, flip on the lights, turn on the camera and go. Mm-hmm. It's a lot easier than schlepping down to a venue to do something.
Yeah.
Yep. And when you're meeting with businesses and you've got that's a piece of our practice that's growing, they want that virtual side. They don't necessarily want you to come out to their place of employment, and teach why people are eating lunch. They're starting to want, hey, let's do an hour virtually. And in this case, the business gave points for financial wellness to their employees for attending. So they got a benefit out of it. And it was we got in front of 70 people. I was there for an hour. I was in our virtual classroom over lunchtime for an hour. I'll do that all day long.
Mm-hmm. Sean, can you talk a little bit about how you cultivate this relationship? You mentioned Melissa's been active in talking to them and that sort of thing, but what advice would you give to somebody else who's like, hey, I'd love to go talk to some businesses?
Well, can I jump in there real quick? Because I know this is the question everyone has.
It's up to Sean. It's Sean's question.
Sean's going to say yes. So
sure.
The burning question for everybody is, hey, is there ever going to be a retirement elevator that you can teach in businesses? And the answer is yes, there will be.
Yeah.
We're just testing it out right now.
Yeah, it's time consuming, man. It's Melissa at our office came from an HR background. She has cultivated relationships over years and years. And I kind of, when she was hired, she does some things for our RIA as well and working with advisors. But when part of her role is to go out and cultivate business relationships. And so she's constantly in motion, constantly at lunches, constantly at roundtables. She's part of the chamber. She's the president of the SHRM board in Utah. I don't know what that stands for, but I know it's an HR board. And so she's really a connector. And from that standpoint, then it's, hey, where are your concerns when it comes to financial wellness, XYZ business? And if there are concerns, then how can we help? And we don't want to just be brought in to teach like a social security class to just your older employees. We want to be brought in as the financial wellness experts and subject matter experts to help the employees position themselves to be ready to plan properly. But two, on the flip side of that, we want to be able to help the businesses understand, what do your employees actually want?
Mm-hmm.
You know, what do they need? Are they concerned about debt reduction? Are they concerned about income planning or investments or tax planning? What are your employees and your demographic of employees actually concerned about? Give that data back to the employer and then teach whatever content the employees want, because it's already all created. It's all under Retirement Elevated banner. We just plug out the modules and pull out the modules to teach based on what the business wants.
Yeah. Well, I think that's probably what people don't want to hear is there's a lot of work involved, but obviously like the opportunity that comes with like walking into a business, and, you know, there's something else to be said for the fact that you didn't market it to them. And that creates a totally different introduction here. It's like, they're coming because they want to come. They're coming because they see the value. And like, you've ultimately put yourself in the position to be the guy that's going to get asked to come in by being the educator and kind of that guy in your market. So I think that's, you know, a lot to be said for that as well.
And I think to add to that, that's also 72 people that go into our database that will get nurtured forever.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's going to be opportunities that pop up, you know, from that. And so, but you got to play the long game. It's a long process. You've got to be committed to continually showing up with value to these people. And that's why I think we get so many, hey, I went to a class 4 years ago, 5 years ago. I'm ready. I'm retiring. It's just because we never stop communicating.
Yep.
Who knows? One of those people will show up to your office with their daughter and give you $4 million next month or next year.
That would be awesome.
Yeah. Cool, guys. Well, this has been super helpful. I hope a lot of people find value in it. I always enjoy talking to you guys, not just because I think you guys have some really, really cool information to share, but just awesome people as well. So I'll give a plug for Retirement Elevated. If you guys are interested in those classes, Scott and Sean have some great content that's available to you. I'll put a link, I think, on YouTube. This is how it works. We'll have a link in the description down below, and you can get more information about that as well. So cool. Thank you guys again. I really appreciate you guys being on Summit Stories with me.
All right. Thanks, Jonathan. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Right, man.
See ya.
Take care. See ya.